this whole shebang going for some time, and to Lauren for keeping all of the awesome mass poetry wheels spinning with all of your awesomeness. So I've got some poems for y'all, and the first one I'm going to read toes that nice line between reality and not reality. Poets get kind of trapped in this idea a lot that, like, poetry, these things are true. This poetry is pretty much all lies. So here's a lie poem. My grandfather was a Cherokee princess. I handle the breakup expertly. Every night I recite the entirety of La Peste in the original French. On a sodden bench by a river in Carolina, next to an imitation Turner, I charcoal portraits of the desperate. The story goes, they crushed the bones of Egyptian mummies for the gold paint. That last bit may be true. So like my fellow poet to come, I'm a native second-generation Miamian, which is kind of like being a unicorn. Not a lot of people make it to 2 generations in Miami. And this is a poem that's very influenced by my Miami upbringing, references my childhood roller rink. And also this crazy phenomenon of like this app that will search your Facebook profile and give you like a spy dossier on yourself. So you can get a digital shadow of your Facebook profile if you want when you get home tonight. Yeah, it's creepy. Yeah. So this poem is called Cluster. Such a cacophony of disco balls surely means surveillance. My digital shadow diagnosis, questionable moral judgment, prone to addictive behavior. Nothing comes of arguing with a shadow. Hours marking the Hot Wheels B-Boys contain rupture, freeze, invert, surely proved that the stillness of the center could be measured only relative to how we control the bright chaos that spins the verb. Skimming. I say to you, if only I had a lean, tough alligator spine. If only my sense of woman grew outward from reptile. If only I lay quiet on hot water. All right. So I grew up in a bilingual context. Woo! Yeah. What up? And I have a sort of fractured relationship with that I'm constantly trying to figure out. So this is a poem that's partially lies and partially true. Do we need to know anything here? There's some Miami neighborhoods referenced, but I think you'll get the idea. Broken Spanish. My Florida cracker mama brought me into sun, into a duplex with wicker chairs and an avocado slice of yard. She did her best, moved me out of Cutler Ridge, a ghetto, to her mother's house in Sweetwater, kept me out of Coral Park Elementary. They don't speak English. To private school in Kendall. Waited out my year in Perrine. Quit talking like a black girl. I did my best. I did my best. 10 years I spoke no Spanish. Pero entonces, I wanted it back. In Boston, I wanted it back. Chacletas y croquetas and the sea so warm, I took skinny dipping for granted. Sí, aquí en Boston me di cuenta. Mi mamá brought me into el sol, and no amount of snow could make me a snowman. Mi castellano roto, my Spanish stolen. Y ahora I live with how I turned my back on my borrowed tongue. Don't clap too soon. So I'm gonna lay some a lot of Spanish on y'all now. So there's some folks in the room tonight that I need to thank before I get into this poem, because Kurt and Andrea and Danielle kind of made this come together for me. So I'm going to do something that people I don't think normally do at poetry readings, which is read a translation that I did. But I'm going to read the original first. So here's a wall of Spanish for you, but I'm going to translate it. This is a poem by a Chilean indigenous poet, David Anellir. He's from the Mapuche cultural background. He's also rather divorced from his cultural environment. He grew up Spanish, monolingual. He's a construction worker. He's a living, working poet right now. You can check him out on YouTube. He's super awesome. So this poem is called Lautaro, who is a Mapuche folk hero. He was a warrior who fought the Spanish when they first came into that part of the world. Lautaro. Eres caballo galopando sobre el mar, subiendo y bajando ventisqueros. En esta época del mal, galopas, brincas y relinchas, sin apero, solo, a pelo, contemplativo, reflexivo, cicatrizando la costra diaria del vuelo. Ciberlautaro, cabalgas en este tiempo tecnometal. Tu caballo trota en la red. Las riendas son un cable a tierra que te permiten avanzar como un huerquen electrónico de corazón electrizado. Lautaro, montado sobre este peludo sistema, cabalgas en la noche, pirateando sin miedo el medio, chateando cerebros y conciencias, pasando piola en la red. Neo Lautaro, peñi pasajero de este viaje, ¿cachaste que hay vida después de la muerte y muerte después de la vida? Como le decían aquellas mariposas, con el zumbido de sus alas aserradas, escuchando Iron Maiden. Yeah. All right, so here's the English version. This is not quite done yet, but I wanted to read it. So, Lautaro, you, the stallion galloping over the sea, scaling then plunging down snowdrifts in this evil age. You gallop, leap, whinny, without gear, alone, bareback, contemplative, reflective, scarring over the daily scab with flight. Cyber Lautaro, you ride in this techno-metal era. Your horse trots in the net. The reins are a grounding cable that allow you to advance like an electric messenger from an electrified heart. Lautaro, mounted on this screwed system, you ride through the night, pirating media without fear, chatting up cerebrums and souls, the ghost in the machine. Neo Lautaro, brother passenger on this voyage, you get it. There is life after death and death after life, just like those butterflies told it the whirring of their steel wings blasting Iron Maiden. Thank you for indulging me. Chileans are really into heavy metal. I'm serious, if you ever go to Chile, it's like all like dudes in heavy metal t-shirts. It's really cool. This poem comes out of my travels in Peru a couple of years ago. It's called Common Room of the Inca Rising Sun Youth Hotel. In Ollante Tambo, hostel sells San Pedro trips. That shit hits pronto, costs barely a peso. Skin the cactus, swallow. Hold up, it gets loco. Flip mode, man, for real. You just feel the world, yo. The next two poems I'm going to read are from a series of acrostic poems that I've been working on based on various sculptures. And this is based on a sculpture by Henry Moore. The title of the poem is the title of the sculpture. It's called Girl with Clasped Hands. Spindly dogs, teats asway and ears prickled, follow the coastline, moai to moai. Statues muscled to the mud testify the lost Polynesian coral white and red eyes. Perhaps all those eyes bobbed off to the English shore, scooped up by Henry Moore for his girl. She worries herself, alabaster soft, an outlook more consistent with craving, gazing from the island up from her unmade maiden half. Her eyes clog sometimes with salt. She is easily soiled or broken. She is so focused. So two more for you. This is another Chile poem. This is called Muro de la Memoria, which is a big memorial in a public park in Santiago, the capital of Chile, that's all photographs of people who were disappeared during the early days of the Pinochet dictatorship in the early 70s. And it's in a park called Parque de los Reyes, Park of the Kings, which was inaugurated as a it's the 500-year anniversary of the landing of Columbus was when they inaugurated this park. And the end of this poem is a truncated quote. It's a Spanish quote, but the word that's missing is the word for pardon or forgiveness. Muro de la Memoria. Why settle for one tragedy, Parque de los Reyes? No Spaniard set foot here in 1492. Still, let us unite the citizens with shrubbery. At Puente Bulnes, on the banks of the Mapocho, we find guilt. Find family photos, police photos, faces and faces and faces. We find the memory of Padre Alsina, killed here, 19 de septiembre de 1973. Spaces. Mátame de frente. On the wall. Sunblot knots. Wet brightness defaces. Quiero verte para darte. So when Padre Alsina, who was a Catholic priest, was killed, he said to his executioner, "Kill me, face me when you kill me, because I want to give you forgiveness." My last poem is also super uplifting. It also deals with the aftermath of the Pinochet dictatorship. This poem takes its title and a few of its lines from a poem by Suhair Hamad, who's an amazing poet. If you don't know her work, I strongly suggest checking it out. And the poem that this is based on, First Writing Sense, she actually performed for Def Jam Poetry, so that's cool. This was based off of her poem about the aftermath of 9/11, and the Pinochet dictatorship also began on a 9/11, so it's sort of a, cross-hemispheric 9/11 problem. This poem is set in a space that was a former detention center and torture center called Via Grimaldi, which is now a park. And is there anything else we need to know? Another torture center is called La Vinda Sexy, is referenced in this poem. I told you, very uplifting. Torture poem. So this is called First Writing Sense, Via Grimaldi Memorial Park. There is no poem for the chains, sea floor dredged and remembering, and I have never tried. Have never been so hungry that I willed hunger, never so tired. And there is no poem, not one word, for the garden that crawls up from the blood-pissed soil. Thank you, my attitude, and thank the amazing upright man with the neat beard, whose horrors are not mine to retell, and who cannot guide anyone through the submarine shadows of La Vinda Sexy. I cannot bless him as he deserves. This blessed, upright man teaching what escapes chains and poems. Pain taught what ought to be learned without a blindfold. That gardens remain possible with cultivation and forethought. That a people represent an evil only in empathy failed. Thank you very much for being here.